Nia had been married to Kemi for 6 years. She always thought their marriage was strong, full of love and understanding. But lately she had started to notice small changes in him. At first it was little things she brushed off, a phone call he stepped out to take, a vague excuse about working late, or a text message he quickly hid when she walked into the room. But then the little things began to add up, and Nia felt a strange unease growing inside her. It started with Kemi coming home later than usual. Nia would wait for him at the door, preparing dinner, imagining him walking through the gate, tired but smiling. But the door would open long after the usual time. When she asked him where he had been, he would give vague answers, sometimes saying he had meetings, sometimes claiming traffic was bad. She could feel that there was more to the story, but Kemi's calm demeanor made it hard to press him further. Nia was careful. She didn't want to accuse him without proof, but the feeling of doubt in her stomach kept growing stronger. One afternoon, Nia met her friend Tola at a small cafe in town. Tola had been Nia's friend since university and they shared everything: laughter, secrets and even small worries. Nia mentioned in passing how she had noticed Kemi coming home late more often. She didn't want to jump to conclusions, but she could not ignore the nagging feeling in her mind. Tola leaned in, lowering her voice. "Have you noticed a young woman named Saad around?" Tola asked cautiously. "I saw her a few times near your husband's office and at that new cafe downtown. She always seemed to be looking for him." Nia's heart skipped a beat. "Saad? Who is she?" Nia asked, trying to keep her voice calm. "I don't know her personally," Tola replied. "But I thought you should know. She was there the last time Kemi was working late at the office too. I didn't want to say anything before confirming, but I thought it might be important." Nia nodded slowly, her mind racing. She felt a mixture of fear, anger, and disbelief. Could it be true? Could Kemi be seeing someone else? She tried to push the thought away, telling herself it might be a coincidence. Maybe Saad was a colleague, a friend, or someone who just happened to be in the same places. But deep down, Nia felt the unease in her stomach grow heavier. Back at home, Nia watched Kemi closely. She noticed that he now checked his phone more often, sometimes stepping into another room to answer a call. He laughed a little too quickly at text messages he didn't show her. There were subtle signs. The slight hesitation when she asked where he had been, the way he avoided looking her directly in the eyes when she asked about his day. Nia took note of every detail quietly, without confrontation, knowing she needed to be strategic if her suspicions were true. She remembered the advice her mother once gave her: "Don't act in anger, Nia. Watch, listen, and wait. Truth has a way of revealing itself if you are patient." Nia clutched the words like a lifeline. She would not jump to conclusions. She would watch carefully and find out the truth before taking any steps. Over the next few days, Nia kept a discreet journal. She wrote down the times Kemi came home, the unusual phone calls, and the small excuses he gave. She also noted the moments when Tola mentioned seeing Saad nearby. Every detail was important. She was not acting out of jealousy, she was acting out of caution. If there was something going on, she wanted to be certain before making any accusations. Nia also began observing her environment more carefully. She noticed the small patterns in Kemi's routine: the days he claimed to have meetings, the times he suddenly had to run errands, the nights he returned home with a tired look that did not match the stories he told. She watched quietly from a distance on a few occasions, taking mental notes. She did not want to appear suspicious, so she blended naturally with the everyday life around her. Even her interactions with Kemi changed subtly. She remained warm and loving, asking about his day in a normal, calm voice. She smiled, cooked his favorite meals, and continued her daily routine. She made sure not to show any sign of suspicion because if there was something going on, she wanted to catch it without alerting him. Nia was careful. She knew that a sudden confrontation without proof could backfire. Despite her calm exterior, Nia's mind was active. She thought about Saad and wondered who she was. Was she a colleague, a casual friend, or someone with intentions toward Kemi? Nia realized she needed more information, but she also knew that rushing into anything could make the situation worse. She needed to plan carefully. One evening, Nia asked Kemi casually about his day. He responded with his usual charm, but she noticed a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. That small hesitation told her more than words ever could. She smiled politely and changed the topic, keeping her tone calm and normal. Inside, she made a silent note. The behavior was consistent with someone hiding something. Over the next week, Nia subtly asked Tola for updates. Tola was discreet, only mentioning things she had seen casually. Nia never pressured her friend, but she made sure she knew the observations were important. Each small piece of information added to the picture forming in Nia's mind. She was not acting on impulse. She was collecting facts quietly, patiently, and strategically. Nia also began to notice her own feelings. The unease was sometimes heavy, almost like a weight pressing on her chest. But she did not let it show. She reminded herself of her goal, to find the truth calmly without causing unnecessary drama. She knew that emotional reactions could cloud judgment. Her strength came from patience, intelligence, and careful observation. By the end of the week, Nia had a small collection of notes, observations, and dates. She had not confronted Kemi, but she felt more prepared. She had begun to understand the patterns in his behavior, and the presence of Saad seemed increasingly significant. She realized that her suspicion was no longer just a feeling, it was becoming a concrete possibility that she needed to handle carefully. One night, Nia sat quietly in her living room, reviewing all the notes she had taken. She thought about the conversations with Tola, the late nights, the hidden phone calls, and the small inconsistencies in Kemi's stories. She realized that patience would be her greatest ally. Acting too soon could ruin everything. She needed proof, undeniable evidence that would confirm her suspicions without giving Kemi a chance to hide anything further. Nia looked at her reflection in the window. Her eyes were calm, but her mind was sharp and focused. She knew that this was not about revenge or anger. This was about clarity, understanding, and taking control of a situation that affected her life deeply. She promised herself that she would handle it with care, intelligence, and calm, no matter how difficult it might become. The next morning, Nia continued her routine, keeping her observations quiet. She smiled at Kemi, asked about his plans for the day, and listened carefully to his answers. Every small detail mattered: the tone of his voice, the hesitation in his words, the casual excuses he gave. Nia paid attention to everything without letting him know that she was carefully watching. She also considered her options. If her suspicions were confirmed, she would have a plan to confront the situation calmly and strategically. She knew that rash actions could backfire, but patience and careful observation could allow her to handle it perfectly. The key was to stay composed, gather proof, and act only when the time was right. As days passed, Nia's confidence in her plan grew. She realized that knowledge was power, and her careful observation was giving her exactly that. She would not be caught off guard. She would handle the situation on her own terms. And as she continued to watch, she felt a strange mix of sadness and determination. Sadness at the thought of betrayal, but determination to face the truth calmly and intelligently. Nia's life continued outwardly normal. She cooked meals, worked on her projects, and laughed with friends. But inside she was alert, patient, and focused. She was prepared for whatever truth would come, knowing that she had the strength and intelligence to deal with it. Her suspicions were growing into clarity, but she would wait for the right moment. Proof, strategy, and calm would guide her next steps. And so, Nia watched quietly, determined to uncover the truth without letting anger or fear control her. She knew that patience and careful observation would reveal what Saad and Kemi were hiding, and that when the time came, she would handle it with intelligence and calm. The next chapter of her life was quietly unfolding, and Nia was ready. After noticing the strange behavior of her husband, Kemi, Nia decided that patience and careful observation were the keys to uncovering the truth. She did not want to act on suspicion alone. She needed facts, evidence, something concrete that would show whether her fears were justified. Acting impulsively could make things worse or push Kemi further away. Nia knew that if there was a side relationship, it would not go unnoticed if she handled it cleverly. She began by keeping a small notebook hidden in her bag. Every detail mattered: the nights Kemi came home late, the excuses he gave, the moments he looked anxious or distracted. She wrote down the time he left for work, when he claimed to have meetings, and any sudden changes in his routine. Even small signs, a lingering text message, a quick smile at the phone, or a sudden pause when she asked a question, were noted. Nia understood that small details often revealed bigger truths. Nia also realized that she could not do everything alone. She trusted Tola completely, and she discreetly asked her friend to keep an eye out for Saad. "Just notice her when she's around," Nia said carefully. "I don't want you to interfere. Just watch and tell me if anything seems unusual." Tola agreed, understanding the seriousness in Nia's voice. She promised to be careful and report only what she saw without creating suspicion. At home, Nia maintained the appearance of normalcy. She smiled, cooked meals, and asked about Kemi's day in the same friendly tone she had always used. She never showed that she was suspicious. The calm exterior was important. If Kemi sensed doubt or anger, he might change his behavior or hide evidence. Nia's quiet patience was her strength, and she used it to observe Kemi more clearly. Each night, Nia reviewed the notes in her journal. She compared patterns in Kemi's activities, noting the times he left and returned, and the number of calls he received or made that he did not mention. She noticed that some messages were deleted quickly, and some calls were taken in private rooms. These details confirmed her intuition that something unusual was going on. But Nia reminded herself to stay calm. Evidence was key, and she would not confront Kemi until she had enough proof. Nia also began to observe her own feelings. At times, she felt anger bubbling inside her, mixed with sadness. But she reminded herself that acting on emotions could ruin her plan. She wanted to be clever, not emotional. She wanted to gather all the facts first, so when the time came she could confront the situation calmly and confidently. Over the next few days, Nia paid attention to Kemi's habits in more subtle ways. She noticed that he sometimes texted quickly when she entered the room, or closed certain apps on his phone too fast. She noted these behaviors in her journal. Each observation helped her build a clearer picture. She also compared them with the information Tola provided about Saad, connecting the dots carefully. One afternoon, Nia noticed Kemi slipping out quietly after lunch. She didn't follow immediately, choosing instead to wait and see where he went over time. She observed the pattern. He often returned late in the evening, claiming long meetings or errands. Each small observation added to the evidence she was collecting. She felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing that patience was revealing the truth. Nia also considered the best way to gather proof without being obvious. She knew that rushing to take photos or spying aggressively could backfire. Kemi could notice and the opportunity would be lost. Instead, she relied on careful observation, noting times, places, and interactions. She also made subtle inquiries through mutual friends, without drawing attention to her concerns. Every piece of information was valuable, and Nia was careful to verify each detail before adding it to her notes. At home, Nia prepared mentally for the moment when she would have enough evidence to act. She imagined possible scenarios, thinking through each one carefully. What if Kemi denied everything? What if Saad confronted her? She realized that calmness and control would be her greatest weapons. She reminded herself that intelligence and patience could outmatch deceit and lies. Meanwhile, Tola observed Saad without interfering. She noted when Saad appeared near Kemi's office or the cafes he frequented. Tola reported small details to Nia: the times Saad lingered, who she spoke with, and her general behavior. Nia combined this information with her own observations, carefully mapping out the connections. Each piece added clarity to a picture that was slowly forming in her mind. Nia also reflected on her own behavior. She continued her daily routine, acting normally around Kemi, smiling and chatting as though nothing was wrong. This calmness was essential. She had learned that suspicion often leads to mistakes if emotions take control. Her strategy was simple: observe, record, and wait for the perfect moment to act. At night, Nia would sit in her room and review everything. She looked over the notebook, the patterns she had noticed, and the information Tola had provided. She also reflected on her feelings, realizing that the growing unease was a mix of fear, sadness, and determination. She wanted the truth, no matter how difficult it might be to face. Nia also practiced patience in small ways. If Kemi came home late without explanation, she would greet him warmly and ask about his day casually. She never showed suspicion. She noticed that Kemi's attempts to hide information became more apparent when he thought she was unaware, which only strengthened her belief that something was wrong. Over the next few weeks, Nia became adept at reading subtle signals. She could notice a quick glance at a phone, a slight hesitation in speech, or the way Kemi avoided her gaze. These small signs were like pieces of a puzzle. The more she observed, the clearer the picture became. Her patience was paying off. Despite the growing clarity, Nia never let impatience take over. She knew that acting too soon could ruin everything. She wanted indisputable proof before confronting anyone. That was why her plan relied on careful observation, consistent notes, and subtle inquiries. She was determined to handle the situation smartly and strategically. Nia's preparation also included thinking about the confrontation itself. She imagined speaking calmly, presenting facts, and staying in control. She knew that anger or accusation could escalate the situation, so she planned to remain composed, letting the evidence speak for itself. The thought of controlling the situation through intelligence and patience gave her confidence. At home, she noticed small changes in Kemi's behavior. He seemed more cautious, sometimes checking his messages quickly or leaving the room for private calls. But these actions only confirmed Nia's suspicion. She did not react outwardly, but she made careful notes, adding every detail to her journal. The puzzle was slowly coming together. Nia's evenings were spent preparing mentally for the next day of observation. She reviewed Kemi's patterns, Tola's reports, and her own notes. She considered different outcomes and how she could respond. She realized that patience, calm, and cleverness would allow her to turn a difficult situation into one she could control. Throughout this time, Nia stayed calm in her interactions with Kemi. She smiled, laughed, and continued the household routines as usual. The outward normalcy helped her maintain control and prevent Kemi from suspecting that she was aware of any wrongdoing. Her calm demeanor was a tool as important as the notebook and the observations themselves. Little by little, Nia's plan took shape. She had documented late nights, secret calls, hidden messages, and Sada's presence near Kemi. She had support from Tola, her keen observations, and a clear strategy for how to confront the situation. Nia felt empowered knowing that she had patience, intelligence, and control, all she needed to handle the situation effectively. Finally, after weeks of careful observation and planning, Nia felt ready to take the next step. She had enough evidence to confirm her suspicions, and she was confident that she could confront the situation calmly. But she knew she must continue to stay calm and collected, even during the confrontation. Her strategy was working. Nia reflected quietly on her approach. She had turned fear and suspicion into preparation and strategy. Her calm observation, careful notes, and reliance on Tola's help had given her clarity and control. She felt ready to move forward, knowing that the next step would reveal the truth fully and allow her to act with intelligence and composure. Her plan was simple: stay patient, gather evidence, observe carefully, and confront with proof. Nia understood that rushing would only complicate things. By staying calm, clever, and patient, she had set herself up to handle the situation perfectly. She felt confident that her strategy would ensure the truth was revealed, and that she would remain in control of her own life and her marriage. And so, Nia waited, watched, and planned quietly. The pieces were falling into place and she was ready for whatever came next. Her patience and cleverness were her allies, and she knew that when the time was right, she would act, and her husband's side chick would never see it coming. Nia had been patient for weeks, carefully observing Kemi and keeping detailed notes of everything unusual. Her small notebook was filled with late nights, secret calls, strange messages, and minor inconsistencies in Kemi's explanations. She had also relied on Tola, who reported discreetly about Sada's appearances near Kemi's office and the cafes he frequented. Piece by piece, the puzzle was forming in Nia's mind, and she knew she was approaching a moment of clarity. One quiet afternoon, Nia received a tip from Tola. "I saw Sad leaving a small building on Ideal Street," Tola said softly over the phone. "It looked like an apartment and she seemed to be waiting for someone. I think it might be connected to your husband." Nia's heart beat faster. She had been waiting for a concrete lead like this. She knew she had to approach carefully. Acting too quickly could alert Kemi or Saad, ruining the chance to gather undeniable proof. She took a deep breath, calm yet focused. She would follow the tip, but she would remain discreet, blending in with the surroundings so that no one would notice her. Nia parked her car a few streets away from the apartment and waited. She watched carefully, making sure she could see the building without being seen. The afternoon sun cast shadows across the street, and she used the natural cover to remain hidden. Her heart pounded, but she reminded herself to stay calm. She had prepared for this moment, and patience would give her the advantage. Within a few minutes, a familiar figure appeared. Saad emerged from the building, glancing around nervously. Nia quietly snapped a few pictures from a distance, careful to remain unnoticed. Saad did not see Nia, and she seemed confident in her belief that no one was watching. This carelessness on Sada's part worked in Nia's favor. She could now document everything without interference. After a short wait, Kemi arrived. He approached the building quickly, glancing around as though checking that no one could see him. Nia's breath caught slightly. There was no doubt now, Kemi was meeting Saad at this apartment, a place he had never mentioned to Nia. She continued taking pictures, her hands steady despite the mix of emotions inside her. The two of them entered the building together, and Nia waited patiently, observing the small apartment door. She noted the exact time they entered, taking mental note of the duration they were inside. She knew that careful documentation was crucial. Proof needed to be clear and indisputable. She quietly recorded the details in her notebook, including the time and the location, adding them to all the previous notes she had collected over the weeks. While waiting, Nia reflected on her strategy. Weeks of patience, observation, and careful planning had led to this moment. She had stayed calm, acted intelligently, and avoided confrontation until she had undeniable evidence. Every late night, every hidden message and every small inconsistency had been part of a larger picture. Now she was watching it unfold in front of her eyes, the truth undeniable. After an hour, Kemi and Saad emerged from the building. They were laughing softly, speaking quietly as though they were the only people in the world. Nia continued snapping pictures, careful to remain hidden behind a tree and a parked car. She observed their body language, relaxed, familiar, and intimate. It was clear they thought no one could see them, and this carelessness confirmed everything Nia had suspected. She noted the time again as they left the building, adding it to her growing list of observations. The proof was now complete: photos, timestamps, and records of their meetings. Every detail had been captured, every action documented. Nia felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. She had waited, watched, and planned carefully, and now she had everything she needed to confront the situation with certainty. Nia knew she had to remain calm. The temptation to rush forward, to confront Kemi or Saad on the spot, was strong. But she reminded herself that strategy and patience were more powerful than immediate action. Acting impulsively could give Kemi and Saad a chance to cover their tracks. She would wait for the perfect moment to act, armed with undeniable proof. She carefully returned to her car, making sure no one had seen her. On the way back home, she reviewed the photos on her phone, confirming that each shot clearly showed Kemi and Saad together. There was no doubt now. The apartment, the time, the behavior, it all pointed to the same conclusion. Her suspicion had been correct all along. Back at home, Nia carefully organized her evidence. She printed the photos, noted the dates and times in her notebook, and included every message and call log she had recorded. She felt a sense of control. Unlike Kemi and Saad, who had been careless and overconfident, she had acted with patience, intelligence, and precision. Every detail she had gathered was now part of a complete record, ready to be used when the time was right. Nia also reflected on her emotions. There was anger, of course, but it was tempered by calm determination. She felt a sense of empowerment, knowing that she had stayed patient and clever while the deception unfolded. She understood that confronting the situation rashly could have backfired, but now, with all the evidence in hand, she had the upper hand. She thought about the lessons she had learned over the past weeks. Observation, patience, and careful planning were more effective than immediate anger. By staying calm and collecting proof, she had turned a situation filled with uncertainty into one of clear control. Nia realized that her intelligence and composure were her strongest tools. The next day, Nia continued observing subtly. She watched Kemi's routine, noting his usual times and interactions. She also checked in with Tola, who reported that Saad had been seen again near Kemi's usual spots. Each small observation added context to the evidence she already had, reinforcing the completeness of the picture. Nia's calm exterior remained intact. She interacted with Kemi normally, asking about his day, laughing at small jokes, and maintaining the appearance of an ordinary life. Her patience was visible only in her actions of careful planning and observation, not in her demeanor. Kemi remained unaware that Nia knew the truth, and that gave her a further advantage. She also thought about the confrontation that would eventually come. With evidence in hand, she could remain calm, present the facts clearly, and let the proof speak for itself. She imagined the conversation in her mind, her calm voice, the photos laid out before them, and the undeniable record of Kemi and Saada's actions. Patience had brought her to this moment, and she knew it would be powerful. Nia understood that timing was important. She needed Kemi to be fully accountable and Saad to be surprised. Acting too soon could lead to excuses or denials, but acting at the right moment with complete evidence would leave no room for deception. Her strategic patience had now positioned her to take full control of the situation. In the evenings, Nia reviewed her notes and photos again. She categorized them, noting times, locations, and the specific interactions she had documented. Every detail mattered. She realized that this careful, methodical approach had made her stronger than any anger or confrontation could have. Knowledge and preparation were her greatest allies. By the end of the week, Nia felt a quiet confidence. She had observed, recorded, and documented everything carefully. The evidence was complete. She had not reacted impulsively, and now she was ready. The discovery had confirmed her suspicions, but more importantly, it had shown her that patience, intelligence, and strategic thinking could give her control in even the most difficult situations. Nia reflected on the contrast between herself and Saad. While Saad had acted recklessly, thinking she could be clever, Nia had observed patiently, never revealing her knowledge. Saad had underestimated Nia's calmness and intelligence. This contrast made Nia feel even more empowered. She had remained composed, collected, and focused while the others acted carelessly. Finally, Nia knew she had everything she needed. Photos, dates, messages, and observations, all documented carefully. She felt prepared to move to the next stage. The discovery had been the result of patience, careful planning, and intelligent observation. Now she was ready to act, and the outcome would be in her favor. And as she looked at the photos one last time that evening, Nia felt a quiet satisfaction. Her patience had paid off. She had waited, observed, and documented everything, and now she had undeniable proof. The discovery was complete, and soon she would confront the situation with intelligence, calm, and control. Saad and Kemi had no idea what was coming. After weeks of careful observation, note-taking, and collecting evidence, Nia felt ready to take the next step. Her patience and careful planning had given her all the proof she needed: photos, messages, call records, and a clear timeline of Kemi and Saada's secret meetings. Nia knew that confronting them without evidence could lead to denials or arguments. But now she was prepared. She wanted to act calmly, confidently, and strategically. Nia decided to invite both Kemi and Saad to her home. She framed it as a friendly talk, something casual, so that neither would suspect her true intentions. She spent the morning tidying the house, arranging the living room, and making tea. Everything had to appear normal. Kemi and Saad needed to feel comfortable, unaware that Nia already held the truth firmly in her hands. When Kemi arrived, he smiled at Nia and kissed her on the cheek. "Everything okay, Nia?" he asked casually, though his eyes showed a hint of curiosity. Nia smiled politely. "Yes, just thought we should all sit together and chat for a bit," she replied. She had made sure that the tone of her voice was calm, friendly, and composed. Kemi exchanged a glance with Saad, who arrived a few minutes later, her usual confident smile in place. Saad stepped into the living room, unaware that Nia had spent weeks planning this moment. She assumed, as Kemi had likely told her, that Nia was completely unaware of anything unusual. Saad did not notice the calm intelligence in Nia's eyes, the quiet strength that came from preparation and patience. Nia poured tea for all three of them, her movements steady and unhurried. She handed cups to Kemi and Saad, who accepted them politely, unaware of the storm about to unfold. Nia began the conversation casually, asking about Saada's day and making small talk, just as if nothing was wrong. Kemi relaxed into his chair, smiling nervously, while Saad remained alert but unaware. Nia allowed the small talk to continue for a few minutes, letting both of them feel comfortable. Her calm demeanor was intentional. She wanted them to lower their guard completely before revealing the truth. Then, in a calm, measured voice, Nia began. "Kemi, Saad, I want to show you something," she said. She reached for the printed photos, the notebook, and the call records she had meticulously prepared. "I've been paying attention to some things lately, and I think it's time to talk openly." She placed the evidence on the coffee table, arranging it neatly so that both of them could see it clearly. Saada's eyes widened immediately as she realized the seriousness in Nia's tone. Kemi shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his confident demeanor faltering for the first time. Nia remained calm, her voice steady and even. She started showing the photos first, images of Saad entering the apartment, Kemi following her inside, and the two of them together at times that matched Nia's notes. Each photo was dated and time-stamped. "This is just the beginning," Nia said softly. She placed her notebook next to the photos. "These are the dates, times, and observations I have recorded over the past few weeks. Every meeting, every secret call, every lie has been noted here." She opened the notebook carefully, showing the organized list of times Kemi left work late, the messages exchanged with Saad, and the time she visited him secretly. Saada's confident smile faded completely. She looked at the evidence in shock, unable to speak. She had assumed that Nia would never know, that she could continue her secret meetings with Kemi without consequence. But Nia's calmness, intelligence, and careful planning had left her completely unprepared. She had underestimated Nia's patience and her ability to gather undeniable proof. Kemi tried to speak, his voice nervous. "Nia, it's not what it looks like. I can explain." Nia raised a hand, signaling for him to stop. "No, Kemi. I've seen everything. I have the photos, the messages, and the timeline. There's nothing to explain anymore. The evidence speaks for itself." Her calm tone left no room for argument. Kemi opened his mouth again but closed it, realizing she was serious. Saada's eyes darted between Nia and Kemi. She tried to regain her composure, but the look of shock and disbelief on her face was undeniable. She had never imagined that Nia would plan so carefully or that she would have proof of everything. Her confidence crumbled as Nia calmly explained the observations, connecting all the dots in a way that left no doubt. Nia continued speaking, her voice even and measured. For weeks I observed carefully, not out of suspicion but because I wanted the truth. I did not want to act on assumptions. I recorded every detail, noted every inconsistency and verified everything. Now it's clear what has been happening and it is time to face it. Saad opened her mouth to speak but quickly realized there was nothing she could say. The evidence was clear. Nia's calm intelligence had disarmed her completely. She had underestimated Nia's patience, her careful planning, and her ability to remain composed while gathering proof. Saad had never seen this coming and now she was completely at a loss. Kemi's face showed guilt and panic. He had assumed that Nia would never find out, that she would remain unaware of his secret meetings. But the combination of photos, messages, and detailed notes had removed all doubt. He tried to explain but Nia remained calm, her eyes steady and unwavering. There was no anger in her tone, only clarity and intelligence. Nia leaned back slightly, maintaining her calm demeanor. "This is not about anger or revenge," she said quietly. "It's about clarity and understanding. You both need to understand that deception has consequences. I have been patient and I have gathered the truth. Now you must face it." Sada's face turned pale. She had never imagined that someone could be so strategic, so patient, and so clever. She had assumed that her charm and Kemi's secrecy would protect her. But Nia had outsmarted her completely. Saad had been careless, thinking Nia would never notice the small details. Now the tables had turned entirely. Kemi sat silently, realizing that Nia's calm intelligence was more powerful than any explanation he could give. He had been caught, not by anger or confrontation, but by patience, observation, and careful planning. Nia's strategy had worked perfectly, and there was no way for him to deny or hide the truth. Nia looked at both of them, her voice steady. "The truth is out now. I have the evidence and I am calm because I have prepared carefully. There is nothing left to hide. Now it is time to reflect on your actions and understand the consequences." Her tone was firm yet composed, leaving no room for denial or argument. Saad, humiliated and surprised, could only nod weakly. She realized she had been completely outsmarted. Nia's intelligence and calm patience had revealed everything, and Saad had no power in this situation. She had never expected the quiet, clever woman she underestimated to be so methodical and prepared. Kemi finally spoke, his voice low. "Nia, I made a mistake. I never meant for it to go this far." Nia shook her head slightly, her calm expression unwavering. "Mistakes have consequences, Kemi. This is not about punishment but about facing the truth. You made choices and now you must live with them." She had maintained control throughout the confrontation. Her calm demeanor and careful planning had ensured that the situation was fully under her control. For the first time, both Kemi and Saad realized the power of patience and intelligence. Nia had waited, observed, and gathered undeniable evidence. She had acted strategically, not emotionally, and the result was clear. The side chick had never seen it coming, and Kemi had no way to defend himself. Nia felt a quiet satisfaction. She had handled a painful and stressful situation with calm, clever strategy. She had turned suspicion and uncertainty into clarity and control. She had demonstrated that intelligence, patience, and careful planning were far more effective than anger or impulsive action. The confrontation ended with both Kemi and Saad speechless, unable to argue against the evidence. Nia had made it clear that deception had been exposed, and that she had remained calm and composed throughout. She had achieved what she set out to do: reveal the truth, maintain control, and ensure that the situation was handled intelligently. As the evening ended, Nia reflected quietly on the power of patience and observation. She had proven that clever planning and calm intelligence could outmatch deceit and carelessness. Kemi and Saad had never expected her strategy, and now they faced the consequences. Nia had turned a difficult situation into one where she held complete control, and she felt stronger for it. After the confrontation, Nia sat quietly for a few moments, letting the weight of the situation sink in. Kemi sat across from her, looking nervous, guilty, and small. Saad, on the other hand, seemed completely humiliated. She realized, with a sinking feeling, that she had been outsmarted by someone she had thought was unaware of her presence. Nia had planned carefully, watched patiently, and collected undeniable proof. The confidence and composure she displayed now left both Kemi and Saad speechless, and that silence gave Nia the space to set the terms for what would happen next. Nia began by addressing Saad first, because her role in this situation had been clear and intentional. Saad, she said calmly, you now know that deception has consequences. I have observed everything carefully, and you underestimated me. I suggest you leave, take responsibility for your actions, and never attempt to interfere in my life again. Her voice was even, firm and controlled. She showed no anger, no theatrics, just quiet intelligence and authority. Saad looked down, unable to respond immediately. Her previous confidence and charm had vanished completely. She had assumed that Nia would never see through her cleverness, but Nia had watched, recorded, and collected all the evidence. The photos, messages, and detailed timeline had exposed everything. With a final glance at Nia, Saad turned and left, her pride wounded and her plans ruined. She had never expected that someone could be so methodical, patient, and composed in dealing with such a situation. Once Saad was gone, Nia turned to Kemi. She did not shout or accuse. Instead, she spoke with calm authority. Kemi, what you did was a serious mistake. You made choices that hurt our marriage and our trust. I am willing to talk about rebuilding that trust, but it will take time, honesty, and effort on your part. Her words were deliberate and her tone was steady. She wanted Kemi to understand that rebuilding trust was not about quick apologies or excuses, it required genuine change. Kemi lowered his eyes, guilt evident on his face. He had never imagined that Nia could be so patient, clever, and observant. He had assumed he could continue his secret without consequence. Now, faced with undeniable evidence and Nia's calm authority, he realized the gravity of his actions. Nia, I made a terrible mistake, he said quietly. I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. I never thought this would happen, and I see now how wrong I was. Nia nodded, listening carefully. She did not interrupt, but her eyes showed a combination of disappointment and clarity. She wanted Kemi to feel the seriousness of his choices, to understand that rebuilding trust would not be easy. I hear your apology, Kemi, she said softly. But words alone are not enough. Trust must be earned again step by step. You have to prove that you are committed to this marriage and that you will not make the same mistakes again. For the next few minutes, Nia and Kemi talked quietly. She set clear boundaries, explaining what behavior was acceptable and what would not be tolerated in the future. She emphasized honesty, openness, and communication as the pillars of their relationship moving forward. Nia's calm demeanor and logical approach made it clear that she was in control, and that any further deception would have serious consequences. Kemi listened carefully, realizing that Nia's patience and intelligence had turned a painful situation into a moment of clarity. He understood that he had been caught not because of confrontation or anger, but because Nia had been smart, strategic, and deliberate. Her calm observation had exposed everything, and he could no longer deny the truth. This realization left him humbled and more aware of the need to change. As the conversation ended, Nia reflected quietly on the experience. She had felt a mixture of hurt, anger, and sadness, but she had channeled those emotions into careful planning and observation. She had acted not out of impulse but out of intelligence and strategy. Her patience had allowed her to collect undeniable evidence, and her calm demeanor had given her control over a difficult and emotional situation. For Nia, the lesson was clear. Quick reactions and anger often lead to chaos, but careful observation, patience, and clever thinking lead to clarity and resolution. She had proved to herself that she could handle a delicate and challenging situation with composure and strength. She had not only revealed the truth but had also set the stage for a healthier, more honest future in her marriage. In the days that followed, Nia felt a renewed sense of confidence. She knew that Kemi would have to work hard to regain her trust, and she was prepared to enforce the boundaries she had set. She no longer felt powerless or uncertain. The experience had strengthened her, teaching her that intelligence and patience could achieve far more than confrontation or emotional reaction. Kemi, humbled and aware of his mistakes, began making efforts to change. He was more open, honest, and careful in his actions. He understood that rebuilding trust would take time, and he respected Nia's boundaries. He realized that the calm authority and clever planning Nia had displayed were not just a reaction, they were proof of her strength and intelligence. Nia also realized that this experience had taught her something deeper about herself. She had always considered herself patient and intelligent, but she had never tested those qualities in such a personal and emotional situation. Now she knew her own strength. She had faced betrayal with calmness, collected proof with cleverness, and resolved the situation with clarity. Her confidence in herself had grown immensely. Saad, on the other hand, had been completely outsmarted. She had underestimated Nia's quiet intelligence, her patience, and her ability to observe without revealing suspicion. Her confidence and cunning had been no match for careful planning and strategic thinking. By the time she realized what had happened, it was too late. Nia had full control of the situation, and Saad left humbled and surprised, fully aware that she had been defeated without confrontation or drama. In the weeks following, Nia continued to enforce her boundaries and watch the dynamics of her marriage carefully. She stayed calm and composed, observing changes in Kemi's behavior while also reflecting on her own growth. The experience had strengthened her emotional intelligence, her patience, and her ability to handle complex situations effectively. She had proven to herself that she could maintain control and resolve problems with intelligence rather than anger. Nia also shared parts of her experience with trusted friends, not to boast, but to illustrate the power of careful planning, patience, and calm observation. She wanted them to understand that reacting impulsively often leads to mistakes, while strategic thinking allows for clarity and resolution. Her story became an example of how intelligence, patience, and composure can solve even the most delicate problems. Kemi, aware of the gravity of his mistake, made sincere efforts to repair the relationship. He communicated openly, followed Nia's boundaries, and consistently demonstrated honesty. Nia appreciated his efforts but remained cautious, knowing that rebuilding trust takes time. Her calm authority and clever planning had set the standard for how their marriage would proceed moving forward. Nia's confidence grew each day. She realized that she had not only resolved a personal challenge but had also grown stronger as a person. She had faced betrayal with composure, collected undeniable proof, and handled the confrontation strategically. The experience had proven to her that careful observation, patience, and intelligence are more powerful than anger or impulsive action. The memory of Sada's shock and humiliation remained in Nia's mind, a reminder of how clever planning can outmatch deception. She understood that her calm observation, patience, and clear thinking had allowed her to control a potentially devastating situation. She felt stronger and more in control than ever, confident that no one would underestimate her again. In the end, Nia had achieved exactly what she had set out to do. She had discovered the truth, confronted it calmly and strategically, and set clear boundaries for the future. She had demonstrated that intelligence, patience, and careful planning could resolve problems more effectively than emotion or anger. Her sense of control and self-assurance had never been stronger. From that day forward, Nia carried herself with renewed confidence. She knew that she could handle difficult situations with strategy and composure. Kemi had learned the consequences of his actions, and Saad had been completely outsmarted. Nia's calm intelligence had proven to be her greatest strength, and she understood that patience and clever thinking were tools that would serve her well for the rest of her life. Nia's story became a personal lesson. Careful observation, patience, and intelligence can turn a challenging situation into an opportunity for growth and empowerment. She had faced betrayal without anger, gathered proof without confrontation, and resolved the situation with clarity. She had emerged stronger, more confident, and more in control than ever before. The experience left Nia with a deep understanding of her own strength and abilities. She had demonstrated that calm observation, patience, and clever thinking were far more powerful than rushing or reacting emotionally. Her confidence and composure had ensured that the situation was resolved in her favor, leaving no doubt that she was in control. Nia smiled quietly, reflecting on all that had happened. She felt empowered, proud of her intelligence and patience, and confident that no one would ever underestimate her again. She had proven to herself and to everyone involved that careful planning and calm composure can turn even the most difficult challenges into opportunities for clarity, control, and personal growth. From that day on, Nia carried the lesson with her. Intelligence, patience, and strategic thinking are more powerful than anger, and calm observation can solve problems that others cannot. She felt stronger, wiser, and ready to face anything life might bring, knowing that she would never be caught off guard again.